Bellina Show, lunchtime, which lunchtime is thanks to Rudy's Barbecue. The Louie Bellina Show, if it's Tuesday and it's noon, it means we head out on the D4 Land Services hotline and we get to hang out with Joe Sheehan of the Joe Sheehan newsletter. Joe, what are you working on right now? What's the next thing you're going to release on the Joe Sheehan newsletter?
I sent out a piece on the Braves an hour ago. Next thing I'm going to do is write up the Mariners. So it's a week where I've focused on the teams that are furthest from expectations, good or bad, for my preseason expectations. So that's the Braves, the Rays, and the Cardinals on the good side, and the Mariners on the bad side. So just a whole week full of focusing on teams.
Oh, so this week will be teams by teams by teams. And for those that don't know, in the Joe Sheehan newsletter, Joe doesn't sit there and do Yankees and Red Sox and Dodgers as the only three teams every day of the week. Joe covers all of Major League Baseball. Joe loves all the teams, all 30 of them in MLB. So your favorite team, he will talk about, he will discuss. It's not just three teams every 12 months long. And that's one of the great things about Joe. He loves all of baseball.
Yeah, it's fun to be able to tap in and say, hey, look, this story is happening. It's not getting a whole lot of play. Let's look into it. Obviously, the Braves have been getting a lot of coverage, but I think the Rays and the Cardinals are some interesting things. So I'm looking forward to digging. And a lot of this, Louie, is, I know, but it's when I actually sit down with the numbers and start going, I actually learn things about these teams that I get excited to share. So it's a fun week for me to write. It's always fun to write. The other thing I did yesterday, I got a wild hair Sunday night, and I started digging into some of the ABS data. Not the individuals, but the team level stuff. And it's interesting to see some of the trends. Like pitchers are basically being cut out of the process. There have only been 9 pitcher challenges in the month of May. So, and if you look at it, catcher's success rate is about 60%. Pitcher's success rate is under 40%. So if you're a team, you basically tell your pitchers, look, the catcher can challenge, but you're not allowed. So there's little things like that I've been looking at, and kind of also too looking at the fact that hitters seem not taking advantage of challenges as much as they were in the early going. They're letting a lot of marginal pitches go by. So the advantage of the challenge system is starting to tilt towards the catchers and the pitchers.
Why do I feel shocked by that? I would expect that pitchers have enough pull that they would have more of a right away. That, you're okay, especially 1-2 in the rotation would have more right away to challenge.
And you think like your Max Scherzers of the world, your veterans get that difference. What we learned during using the system in spring training last year and through the minor leagues, that pitchers' success rates just aren't that great. And think about it, Louie. Pitchers are in motion. You're finishing up your motion, your body's kind of coming around, and you don't have your head often steady when the pitch crosses the plate. So you're going to have less of an ability to determine where that pitch was than, say, the catcher who's just receiving it and standing still, even the batter who's standing there and sitting still for the most part. Pitchers, because they're moving, are just going to be less reliable reads on who's actually going to make the challenge. So that's why I think in the early pitchers were challenging 41 in April, so what's that, a little more than 1 a day? And now it was actually at one point, 5 challenges in the first 9 days of May. There were a bunch on Sunday. But I think teams are just recognizing that, look, we only get 2 of these per game. And if a catcher's going to be right 60% of the time and a pitcher's going to be right 40% of the time, it's an easy call just to tell your pitchers, don't challenge.
Sure, you just got to trust your catcher. It's just that simple. The pitcher now has to trust the catcher to have his back.
Absolutely. And it's similar to the relationship in a lot of ways between pitchers and catchers, right? You trust the catcher to frame the pitch. You trust the catcher to block the slider on 3 and 2. You trust the catcher to frame the pitch to call the right pitch. So it's just another element in which the pitcher-catcher relationship, a lot of trust is going to have to be built in there. So I think by the end of the year, pitcher challenges are going to be, if they're not 0, Louie, because as you say, some veterans are going to probably have a certain amount of leeway, it's going to be very bad.
Joe, you started with ABS, and I wanted to ask you something. There was May 10th was the date, so I go back Sunday. There was the game with the Orioles and the A's, and the home plate umpire denied the ABS challenge twice, once per team. And I didn't know umpires could, so I went and looked up the rules. Sure enough, and the umpire has the discretion. He can deny challenges if they determine the request was delayed, aided by the dugout, are not made immediately. Of the two challenges, I think one without a doubt was delayed, and I think the other one was borderline. Has this been common? Is this just the first time I've seen it? Has this happened often? Is this a thing?
It's a thing in that umpires do have that discretion. Under the rules, the batter is basically supposed to make the decision, or anybody is supposed to make the challenge immediately. Now, immediately is a weasel, right? What is immediately in this context? Is it 1 second? Is it 2 seconds? What the league doesn't want is the players getting some kind of additional information from the dugout. They don't want anybody going, oh, go ahead and challenge. They want the hitter, the catcher, the pitcher to be making that decision instantaneously.
They don't want instant replay to kick in so that the dugout can watch a replay and then signal it in, because that was what would happen if it was allowed.
If you gave the players that additional, maybe you made it 5 seconds, that would probably be enough time to get additional information. So the umpires do have discretion. Now, I'll be honest with you. Do you remember back in the days of the neighborhood play at second base? Where the
of course.
Double play wouldn't come anywhere near the bag, and everybody would just go along with it. The shortstop never touched the bag, but it's just the way we play the game. But then once a month, an umpire would decide to call the runner safe, like just out of the blue. The umpire was like, "I want some attention."
Yeah.
There's an element of that to it where whenever I see an umpire deny a challenge, I feel like he's making it about me, because can you really tell the difference between 1.5 seconds and 2.5 seconds in this context? It's really hard for me to understand why, short of everybody, like I can see a situation where you would, beat, tap. And okay, that's taking too long. But we're really talking about very small gradations of time here. And it just seems to me like an area where umpires, just every now and then, are going to be like, I don't want to give you that one. And I don't necessarily think that's good for the game. I'm probably low man on umpires in general, major league umpires. I think people who put in their time to umpire games at the youth level, at the scholastic level, I think those guys, all the credit in the world. There's no glory in it. But I do think major league umpires bring a level of ego to the job that gets in the way.
I looked at the video of the two. The first one should have been allowed. Like, that made no sense. And I'm telling you, no. Okay. The first one should have been allowed. And the second one was bizarre because he actually threw the ball around the horn, right? There was a delay. Like, it's the one that should have been overturned. He screwed it up. And I feel like the second one was a makeup call for the first one in a really bizarre way.
If the catcher has the opportunity to release the ball, and I'm going by your description, but if the catcher has already thrown the ball down to third before the tap, that's too long. Like that, there shouldn't be enough time for an action to occur.
Right.
Before you make a challenge.
Yeah, it was a really odd situation, and I don't know. It's one of those things, since this is year one, you could maybe see a further clarification down the road or something along those lines. But for me, it was just a revelation. I didn't know umpires could, read the rule they could, look back at it, and it hasn't been common, so maybe not make too much of a thing out of it, but it was just a weird moment. That's all.
It's also not entirely new to players. They used it in spring training last year. Think about what percentage of players have been in the minor leagues over the last couple of years. They've had the system in the minor leagues for a few years now. So the number of players for whom this is completely new is very small. The number of players who haven't had an opportunity to challenge at this point, even in early May, is pretty small. But yeah, you're going to have, I don't know this in front of me, but I guarantee you there are players who have not yet challenged. Minors, majors, spring training. There are probably still some guys who are still getting used to what their opportunities. They don't, some of them might even know, wait, I can challenge you. And they realize it a little bit late. The other thing I've seen is the accidental challenge, and I want to say Ben Lindbergh at the rink did a really good piece on this, where guys have basically put their hands to their head after a pitch out of exasperation or a nervous tick or whatever, and that's been deemed a challenge because that's the signal. You put your hand to your head. So if you tap your head out of front, oh man, I can't believe it. I've seen a couple of guys do that, and I say Ben Lindbergh at the Ringer did a great piece on this, the accidental challenges.
And you know what's funny? I completely see that. That's not too hard to figure out. Where he's just, again, adjusting his helmet, or it's just part of his routine, right?
Right, but if you're the umpire, you kind of got to. That is something I don't think you want to give a lot of ground on. If the guy touches his head in the first second or two after the pitch, I think you kind of have to consider that a challenge.
Yep.
You don't want a guy being able to do the signal and then go, "Oh no, I was just kidding." Right? Exactly. You don't want that. I think umpires kind of have to be strict about that. Look, you touch your shoulder, pat your own butt, whatever your nervous tick is after a play or whatever you're exasperated, don't touch your head. Like everybody has to be Adrian Beltre. Don't touch the guy's head.
Joe, switching to something way, way different. Over the past 3 days, I've seen a lot of discourse on various media forums about the concept that Jim Crane's going to be ready to surrender and Yordan Alvarez could be on the market.
Let me work backwards there. I put out on Blue Sky, I said free Yordan Alvarez.
You started it. Holy cow.
I started it, yeah. It's a tough spot because we talk a lot about the Astros and where they're headed and the overlap with the, Alvarez's contract. They signed him to a long-term deal a few years ago, but, are the Astros going to be good before that contract is up? And I think there's a reasonable case that there's not. So you have this incredibly great hitter who would be an impact player, an MVP candidate, and you have a lot of teams that could use a bat like that right now. If you're going to reach I'm not going to say Alvarez is Juan Soto, but if you could get 75% of the Juan Soto package for Yordan Alvarez, I think that's something you've got to look into. It's just this team is not going to be good for a while. You're really just going to write off this year. And the sooner, of course, you do this, the more important it is, the more of Alvarez's control that you're actually sending out. If you do it this year, a team gets him for, I want to say he signed for 29, Louie. I could be wrong about that, but I thought the contract ran for 29. So that's 3 pennant races, 3 potential postseasons. You wait until after the season. Okay, now it's only 2 potential postseasons. The price that you can get back for him is going to be higher the earlier you decide to trade him. And like I said, I looked at the Astros over 27, 28, 29. Maybe by 29, you've been bad a couple of years, you've had a couple of high draft picks. Maybe that's the year that you're going to aim for. But I think this team has to go into a rebuild, and it's going to be ugly. And Alvarez is by far your most attractive option, especially with Brown hurt, Pena's hurt, Correa doesn't have a lot of trade value, Altuve doesn't have a lot of trade value. It's really Alvarez that you're going to do.
Does Crane just want to be 500 and sell tickets, and he's happy if he makes money? So he's not trying to win? He just wants to have a profit margin?
This is a new spot for him, and I want to be careful about. I think Crane's made a lot of mistakes over the last 3 years, going back to firing James Click, turning the team over to Dana Brown, maybe forcing some transactions. I don't believe we know whether Jim Crane has it in him to go into a 3-year rebuild, whether he wants to be that team. I will say, though, Louie, there is no worse place to be, forget baseball, than the team that is just aiming for a wild card, just trying to win 84 games, because you're just in the middle of nowhere. And maybe you fall into the playoffs from here. Maybe that does happen. But more likely, you're just going to get a little bit worse and a little bit worse and a little bit worse. The Astros right now remind me for all the world of like the 2012 Phillies, who had won the World Series in 08. 2009, they got back there. 2010, they lost in the ALCS. 2011, they lost in the Division Series. And then they went into this 7-year funk. And right now, the Astros, who had this incredible dynasty, but have been taking a little bit of a step back each year. Last year, they finally missed the playoffs. And now, are you going to go into a 7-year funk if you don't do something to arrest them? Again, I think Crane, like a lot of owners right now, might be waiting around to see what happens with the CBA. Because if, let's say for the sake of argument, MLB does achieve a payroll cap. They do get the union, whether they break the union or they get the union to agree to a payroll cap. That kind of cost certainty is going to raise the franchise value of every single franchise in MLB. So if you can win the labor war, all of a sudden the Astros are going to be worth 20, 25, 30% more than they are today. All of the teams are worth more than that. So maybe I think Twins are in this position where you're holding out and saying, if we can win the labor war, on the other side of it, we can actually sell the team for a lot more money.
So you're saying Crane can hold out so he can sell out?
I'm saying that the uncertainty of the labor war does 2 things. It lowers the short-term value of the asset because of the potential that the 2027 season might be delayed or not happen at all. I don't think that's going to happen, but if you're looking to buy a franchise, it's a bad time to do it. And it also raises the potential value of the franchise on the other side of that war. So if you were looking to sell, this isn't the time to do it. But the other side of this, absolutely could.
Who on the current Astros roster do you keep then if you don't think that you're going to be competitive again until 29?
There's nobody. I mean, I'm sure he's making $30 million a year, and he's got 10 and 5 rights. He's just going to be the guy who I think goes down with the ship.
Face of the organization.
Trying to do 22, 23, 24, 25. Pena is a free agent after 27. If I've got my math right. I mean, he's not going to be there. Correa, again, no trade value, and who knows what he's physically going to be like. I mean, the young players on the team just aren't very good. Brown is now hurt. He's somebody you would have seen as an anchor type. Who knows what you're going to get out of him in the next few years. They just don't have that. That's the reason to make this trade, is that you just don't have that building block core that you had for so long. We talked about the team for years. They've got a championship caliber before. Well, Alex Bregman's in Chicago, Kyle Tucker's in Los Angeles, Framber Valdez is in Detroit. Okay, he's getting knocked around, but you understand my point.
Yeah.
The core just isn't there. And you basically have old players who are in the. You have young players who aren't very good, and you have injured players, and you have Yordan Alvarez. Listen, if you're not willing to trade Alvarez, selling doesn't make any sense because you can't get anything for the rest of the roster. But if you do want to sell, I mean, Alvarez is the only guy who's going to bring you back an impact package. There are good players here, Josh Hader, if healthy, brings you back. Jeremy Pena, when healthy, will bring you back something. Although, like I said, the limited number of years left makes an issue. That's the issue there. But Alvarez is the only guy that's going to bring you, I don't want to say the Herschel Walker deal, but you know what I'm saying. It's a kind of 3-4 player package that could actually turn your franchise.
He could help you build half your minor league system.
Yep.
I
mean, look, even now, look at the Nationals. Look, the Nationals never got back on track, but the Juan Soto trade was great for them. James Wood, C.J. Abrams, both of whom were having great years. Mackenzie Gore, who was a very good left-handed starter who they eventually traded to the Rangers. That's the kind of trade you have to. But here's the thing: this is Dana Brown's job. Dana Brown basically would get one chance to get this right, and if you get it wrong, remember the Justin Verlander trade? Can you name anybody the Astros traded for Verlander?
No, I could not. No, I'm serious.
I remember Jake Rogers, the catcher. I don't remember the other two players. But this is what I'm saying. You get one chance to do this right. So I think it's something the Astros have to consider. I love watching Yordan Alvarez. Obviously, he's a big part of that team. A big reason why people even go to that park. But Yordan Alvarez on a 74-win team for the next 3 years isn't helping.
Joe, let's grab a timeout while I digest and cry. Joe Sheehan of the Joe Sheehan newsletter on the D4 Land Services hotline for all your land clearing excavation needs, d4landservices.com. If you just need help getting your land, fixed, go to d4landservices.com. This is the Louie Bellina Show, Tuesday on The Zone.
Can't reach your radio? Listen to Aggie Baseball online at radioaggieland.com.
The Louie Bellina Show. The Louie Bellina Show, presented by CC Electric, where they do residential, commercial, and industrial services. That is CC Electric. We're hanging out with Joe Sheehan of the Joe Sheehan newsletter. Joe, I got 2 text messages for you if you think you're up for it.
Yeah.
All right, you asked for it. Eric, the bartender, texted and said, Joe, do you think the Orioles will bust out of their slump?
I think it's a fascinating question because you go back to 3 years ago, and we would have said this is heading towards being one of the best offenses in baseball, built around all of these young hitters. And so many of them have either stalled out or had injury cases. Jackson Holliday coming back from that hamate injury from the spring. Colton Cowser and Heston Kjerstad really just never launched. I traded Kyle Stowers and Connor Norby to Miami, Trevor Rogers. There's a whole class of prospects that just haven't really worked. And even Gunnar Henderson has stalled out a little bit. Adley Rutschman has been injured. He's off to a great start this year. He's the one guy in that group that's really hitting. I still want to believe in the pedigree, but we're talking about these guys having, 500-600 plate appearances in the major leagues now and not actually hitting. So I certainly have some doubts about it. It's possible that Mike Elias waited too long to trade these guys or to put a team around them, and now you've got a team that doesn't really seem to have that 90-win upside that they did a couple of years ago. I think it's a fascinating question. I still right now. I think this year I had them maybe coming in 83 and 79, and I think they take that given how badly they started. So if you told me that this version of the Orioles never got back to the playoffs, I wouldn't be terribly surprised.
Wow. Next text message question, by the way, 979-693-1150. That is the, if you want to text, 979-693-1150. I see what you have to say inside the Texas Mobile One Lube Express inbox. That's where all your text messages gather. This is going to make you laugh. It says, Joe, is tanking even possible in the AL West? How would you tell?
Yeah, it's not exactly like doing it in one of the better divisions in baseball. Obviously, we talked about this has been one of the big stories, Louie. The AL just completely being terrible this year. At one point, they had just two teams above 500, the Yankees and Rays. And, the A's have gotten back over 500, but the NL has won something like 57% of the interleague games so far, and it's really tough because you don't have teams setting the bar. The Mariners, to me, are clearly the best team. I think the Rangers are a clear number two, with the Astros having fallen apart. The A's, we know they can score. The pitching has been a little bit better than I expected it to, but I don't think they're going to be able to hang in this race. I think when you're talking about a Mariners-Rangers race to the finish, and instead of getting to the Rangers at 85 and the Mariners at 93, it might be close to it. It might be a division that goes down to the wire at 86, 87 wins.
So I realize that the Astros are most likely not going to win it. I hate the Rangers with a never-ending, undying passion. I want to punch the Mariners in the face. I don't have a lot of options left. Maybe the A's, but I hate their owner too. I've come to realize I hate everyone in the AL West. I'm thinking maybe just take away a representative and throw another wild card in.
So I want to know what that looks like. Like, do you just punch the Mariner Moose in the face to represent?
Oh, not the Moose! No, the Moose is cool.
So is it like a Bugs Bunny cartoon where they're all lined up and you punch the first guy and they all kind of go down like dominoes? Or do you individually punch 26 Mariners?
I'd individually punch all 26 Mariners. That's more of the route I'd like to go.
Now, I've hung out with you. You're going to have to get on a ladder to pick up any guys.
Hey, I'm a tall 5'8" and change. I play up. I play up a bit, okay? I play up a bit. I don't like the Mariners. I don't like the A's. Oh, I can't stand the Rangers. Is there any team can we add someone to the West real quick?
Well, go back. I was going to say, no, the Astros came over. The West was 4 teams for a long time. The Astros came over. And I don't, we're going to get realignment at some point. I'm sure we're going to spend
Sure we are. Sure we are, Joe.
I don't want it, but I was in the 2030s. We're going to get the 31st and 32nd team. We're going to get some radical realignment. I don't really care one way or the other. I would like it just because I would like to stop talking about it. Do you know how many years I've had people emailing me, hey, what do you think about my realignment plan with a team in Nashville and a team in Montreal? I don't care. I only care about the games and the teams that actually exist and not the ones that might exist. So, yeah, I know. I sound like an old man. But it's just that conversation.
Ooh, the Rockies. Could we put the Colorado Rockies in the AL West?
Would anybody notice?
They'd fit in.
I will say that's a fun road trip. And I'm starting. You've been to Coors, I take it.
First game I ever went to, it was the Cubs and the Rockies. And then the second time, it was the Astros and the Rockies. The bratwurst is the best I ever had. And they had the Rock Pile was the brewery, craft beer in a ballpark before everyone had it. I have been. And when you sit there, it was the most beautiful view I've ever seen because they had that big Ferris wheel, I think the dead center, and then the Rocky Mountains to right center, and the air is beautiful. Yes, I've been.
It is. There are a few combinations of bad baseball and great environments, like Coors Field. Pittsburgh, I guess, is the other one if you want to point out. But
yes!
For 40 games a year, there is almost no better place to be. Louie, they draw 30,000 a game, even though the team has been bad forever. Because it's just such a great place to hang out. It's such a great environment to watch a ball game. So, yeah, get to get Rockies into the AFC, and then you get an extra road trip there. You get to go there twice a year, as opposed to having to go to Sacramento or Anaheim.
Yeah, look, if you're the Astros and you can either start or begin the trip in Colorado to kind of bridge the way to the West Coast, it's kind of perfect.
It actually is. So there you go. You can put the Rockies in the AL West. See, you get me to do a realignment discussion.
See, and I ended it for you. Now you can quote me and go, yeah, there's this brilliant guy I know. His name is Louie Bellina. just email him, Louie at BrianBroadcasting.com. He has all the answers in the world, and he punches people in the face for no reason.
You got to get it famous for the guy who stood on 2 chairs and punched Logan Gilbert in the face.
Well, Randy Johnson, I would have needed 3, but that's a Mariner a long time ago. Something I wanted to talk to you about before we run out of time here. Bobby Cox passed away. 84, passed away on Saturday, and that was my prime time. I remember him extremely well. I remember those Braves teams. They stole, Greg Mad Ducks from me, pissed me off royally. If you love baseball, I felt like couldn't help but love those Braves teams, and he's the type of manager I don't think could exist in the game today.
No, and there's a whole generation of guys who really wouldn't work with the way the manager job has evolved. But in his era, he was a great manager. He was a GM before that. He helped build those teams in Atlanta that he ended up moving into the dugout and later managing. Obviously, different, more of a temperamental guy. But, I was listening to John Smoltz do an interview yesterday. He was talking about just the way he made the players on his team believe in themselves. He believed in you, so you believed in yourself. And that's, remember, the Braves were, the superstation laughed. We laughed at the Braves in the late 80s and in 1990. And then 91, they went worst to first at the top. Made the defense better, and that started what became a Braves dynasty that ran for almost 20 years. And, he eventually handed it off. But, yeah, this guy engendered great loyalty from his players. X's and O's, we can debate that. We talked about that more when he was managing because managers had more of an impact on, the between 7 p.m. and 10 p.m. They had to make more decisions. The roster was more theirs. The game was more theirs. Nowadays, a lot of that stuff does happen in concert with the front offices. And, we've seen veteran managers adapt to that. Dusty Baker did in Houston. We saw Terry Francona's done it. It's not like these guys couldn't adapt, but Cox was a manager from a different era of expectations of managers where you had to both manage the people and actually manage the players. And Cox was very good at both of them. He went to the Hall of Fame. If you read some of the coverage over the last couple of days, you really understood how much his players loved him.
Yeah, no doubt. And again, those Braves, they were like the greatest dynasty that wasn't. Did they win one ring?
They won one World Series. They lost the World Series in 91. Just gave the great Game 7 between Morris and Smoltz. They lost in 92 to a Blue Jays team that won 2 in a row. They lost in 95 they won in 95, and they lost a couple of World Series to the Yankees when the Yankees were a dynasty. They just kept running into some really good teams in the World Series. But, that's the nature of baseball, right? I mean, you're just the best of 7 series. That's going to happen. It never took anything away from me. Like, I'm not going to wait the postseason to that effect. So I still say the Braves were. I still say the Astros were a dynasty. Where the Giants winning 3 World Series in 5 years, I don't think of them as a dynasty because they didn't make the playoffs in the other 2. So to me, dynasty is about your regular season performance. And in my lifetime, you're talking about the late 90s Yankees, and you're talking about the Braves, and you're talking about
the Astros.
Dodgers. Yeah, the Astros from 2015 to 2024 to me meet the definition of it.
Okay, I just got to put the Astros in there. Had one of the greatest players in clutchability in history. So you leave them out, I'm out too. And speaking of not great managers, will Tony Vitello survive the season?
This is getting ugly. Had a pitching change issue. They called up their top prospect, Bryce Eldridge, who's a big left-handed hitter, but Vitello isn't playing him every day. He's kind of working him into the lineup around Devers, Schmidt, Chapman. It's an awkward roster because they really don't have a place to play Eldridge. But once you call up a 22-year-old hitter, you have to put him in the lineup every day. Otherwise, what are you doing? If you're going to play Bryce Eldridge every 3rd day or something, you're just going to mess him up. So I really disagree with Vitello's doing there. Look, it wasn't a good team. I mean, the ghost of Casey Stengel wasn't going to turn the 2026 Giants into a playoff team, but he's not helping right now. And he does make an easy target to blame if things go wrong.
But when you mismanage calling a pitcher out of a bullpen,
exactly, stuff like that.
That this weekend, because I've been as a college baseball fan, I'm observing it from that angle, and when I saw that, that's when I went, oh no, it's so bad. The losing part. You helped me understand that the Giants were never going to win this year.
And he's also had a couple more. He had this big thing with the pro where he was he was doing the rah-rah thing. And I'm sorry, this just doesn't work in the major league. The stuff that worked for you at Tennessee doesn't work in the major league. I also think there's an adaptation, and you're going to laugh. There's a difference between playing every day and playing only on the weekends and maybe a midweek game. It's a much harder job in the main. And just something as simple as that is, no, we do this 6 to 7 days a week. And we play one, and we get the next day, we play another. I just wonder if his intensity is going to work in that environment when it's not going right. And right now, it's just not going right. This team is just not playing well. They beat the Dodgers last night, but it's not a good team. It doesn't have a good bullpen. You lost Logan Webb as a starter. It's everything that is going wrong. And I will say that you might look at this and say, does he get a second chance because of all of the injuries? Because they've had so many injuries, because it was such a flawed roster, do you say, we're going to bring him back in 27 because to give him a better chance? But now, if you're Buster Posey, not only have you made all of these controversial, high-risk signs, Chapman, Adames, trading for Rafael Devers, you've now made this managerial hire out of nowhere. I think this very quickly becomes a Buster Posey story as opposed to a Tony Patello story.
Yeah, well, this move put him now in the crossfires where he wasn't before. Joe, go be awesome.
Hey, Louie, can I squeeze something in here?
What's that?
I want to squeeze something in here if I can.
Yeah, of course, always.
This Sunday, the newsletter's 16th birthday. I sent the first one on May 17th, 2010. 16 years I've been doing this. Go to Blue Sky, go to joesheehan.com. 16% off for 16 months. It's one of the best deals I've ever given. 16% off for 16 months of the newsletter to celebrate it turning 16 on Sunday. I hope people will check it out.
Go to joesheehan.com. joesheehan.com. And if you've ever thought about the Joe Sheehan newsletter, which I go if you like baseball, it doesn't have to be a love thing. The Joe Sheehan newsletter is a must. It'll complement your love of baseball. It'll enhance, it'll increase. If you enjoy baseball, the Joe Sheehan newsletter is the greatest deal already. But now, in honor of the 16th birthday of the Joe Sheehan newsletter, which is officially on Sunday, 16% off for 16 months. Go to joesheehan.com. And you can just take advantage of the offer. You can sign up now. Joe, happy almost birthday, brother.
Thanks, man. I'm very proud that I succeeded for this long. And it's a lot because of guys like you pushing it out there and supporting the newsletter. Thank you, man.
Hey, be good, brother. Talk to you soon. Joe Sheehan of the Joe Sheehan newsletter. I will remind everyone before the week is out again. That's an incredible offer. Look, for the volume you get, his newsletter is already a steal because like he promises, I don't know if it's 2 newsletters a week, and he does like 4 because just whenever he gets an idea in his head, he just sends out a newsletter. He doesn't care about I'm only supposed to do 2. He does like 5 some weeks, and like the other 3 are free. So it's already the best deal out there in like newsletter history. joesheehan.com for more info. When we come back, NFL schedule leaks and releases. Let's talk a little NFL. It's the Louie Bellina Show, presented by CC Electric, built on faith, family, and community. That's CC Electric. It's the Louie Bellina Show on the Zone.
The Louie Bellina Show.
All right, now listen up.
Learn more with the Community Spotlight each Tuesday at 1:50. Be part of the Louie Bellina Show. Weekdays 11 to 2 on the Zone.
The Louie Bellina Show halftime. I really like that song. Louie Bellina Show halftime. That means we're hanging out till 2 o'clock, and well, it's 12:40. We're a little past halftime. The Louie Bellina Show inside the Charles Schwab studio. Thanks for keeping me company. Thanks for hanging out with me on a Tuesday. I can confirm Olin Buchanan will be with us at 1 o'clock. I know it's Tuesday, Community Spotlight 150, Aggieland Humane Society. I'm encouraging you to text message me, but only if you love ham. Because every day this week, you text, you have a chance to win a $100 gift card to Honey Baked Ham. Honey Baked Ham only uses the highest quality hams. They select them. Only 1 in 10 hams actually make the cut. They slow smoke them for 22 to 24 hours over a blend of hardwood chips. Honey Baked Ham is the leanest, most flavorful ham on the market. Always moist and tender, no added water or juices. All their meats are gluten-free. That's Honey Baked Ham. So text. You've got an hour and, math. No, why did I do this? Hour, 18 minutes and change left. Every day this week, I pick 2 names at the end of the day. Friday, I'll have 10 names in front of me. Somebody gets to win a $100 gift card to Honey Baked Ham. 979-693-1150. 979-693-1150. You can text now. Something I wanted to talk about, the NFL schedule release. It's May 14th. It's Thursday. No, it's not. It's release week. And it's kind of brilliant. And I know it's a whole lot of fun. I'm kind of not sure who doesn't enjoy this. You find out this game, that game. Well, something odd, how it ends up being such a big deal. We already know everybody's schedule. We just don't know what week. The NFL has a scheduling formula that has no variance. You already know your favorite team, every opponent. Home and road, we just don't know the order. Using last year's, which is very dangerous to do in the NFL, there seems to be a lot of variance. There's 32 teams, and I would say only 8 teams. We kind of know the 4 teams that are going to be awful, 4 teams that will be good, and I think everyone else just has a high level of variance. We already know that the Bengals, Saints, and Browns, for example, have the easiest schedules. The Cleveland Browns are going to face a schedule that, based on last year, their opponents have a .429 win percentage. And the Browns will still probably have a losing record because they're going to play 3 different quarterbacks during the course of the year. And if Deshaun Watson steps on the field, the Browns should be kicked out of they should have to play in the UFL. The Saints, next to the last easiest schedule, their opponents have a .434, and then the Bengals, .450. Like, how do teams bounce back? How do teams come out of nowhere? The Detroit Lions have spent 2 years dealing with injuries and changing over their coordinators. And people are like, has their window closed? If you can give me one healthy year and the Lions still can barely win 9 games or flame out in the first round of the playoffs, then we could talk about windows. But I look at the injuries of the past 2 years. The Lions, if they were to win 13 again, A, probably healthy, and B, they have the 27th easiest schedule. Their opponents have a .467 win percentage. We're Cowboys and Texans country. If you listen Sundays on the Zone in the fall, you hear the Houston Texans. We're your home for Houston Texans football, and that is the Zone, 1150 AM and 93.7 FM. I don't know how, the Texans are the AFC South champions and, they win a playoff game, so they work first round flameouts, and they pulled the 26th easiest schedule, .474 on the win percentage. So their combined opponent's record is sub 500, 26th easiest schedule. Dallas Cowboys. I haven't met a Dallas Cowboys fan in a really long time. There is a point in time in my life, everybody I knew was a Dallas Cowboys fan. But after decades of Jerry-ship, am I saying that right? Jerry-ship. I'm going to say that. I like it. People have thrown away their Cowboy jerseys. People have denied them not once, not twice, but 3 times. Nobody I know is a Cowboys fan anymore. I get a lot of I used to's. The Cowboys play the 20th easiest schedule for the upcoming season. Their opponent's record from last year, 142, 146, and 1. That's a .493 win percentage. Cowboys have the 20th easiest schedule. America's team, the most beloved team, the Pittsburgh Steelers, 19th, right there with the Cowboys, .495, effectively the same zip code. So the question for me, who got the tough schedules? Like, all these teams, playoff teams, and have the easiest. Well, the Bears play the toughest schedule. So Chicago, LaFleur, Caleb Williams had this breakout. They got over the hump. What if they take a step back? Is it because Caleb Williams stinks, LaFleur was exposed, or is it because somehow they pulled the toughest schedule? 550, easily the toughest schedule. Cowboys pull a .493, 20th toughest, but easiest, sorry. Bears toughest schedule at 550. How does the Dolphins have the second toughest schedule and the Cardinals and Packers have the third toughest? I mean, I get the Packers. But the Arizona Cardinals stink. The Arizona Cardinals are just a dumpster fire organization. How do they pull the third toughest schedule at 538? The Chiefs, didn't they miss the playoffs last year or something horrific, like that? Have the fifth toughest schedule at 536. I got one for you of things that don't make sense. The Raiders of Las Vegas, they had the number 1 overall pick, and it was well deserved. Like, they were truly the worst team in the NFL. How do they play the 7th toughest schedule? How is their, and I understand because it's a set schedule, like we said at the beginning, and you already know who they're playing because you play this one division based upon where you finished. Your whole division plays another division. It's actually not a parity schedule, believe it or don't. But your reward was the number 1 pick. Would you rather have the number 1 pick or the number 1 easiest schedule for being the worst team? Which one would give you more hope for next year? The Raiders have the 7th toughest schedule at 529. Cowboys play the 20th easiest. Texans 26th. But the Raiders, who have just begun a 28-year rebuild, play the 7th toughest. I kind of don't get I did 1 + 1 and somehow that was 3. If the Raiders have the 7th toughest and the Cowboys have the 20th and Texans 26th, when you have a team as bad as the Raiders, give them the top 3 picks and the number 1 easiest schedule and watch them still struggle to 6 wins. That's entertainment. That's pay-per-view level stuff to me. Just a quick look. When we come back, a couple other observations. The leaks. Cowboys, Giants, Sunday Night Football. And that's like the Cowboys and Giants have played each other. This is the 13th time they've opened the season against each other. The 13th time. And you know what? And that's how it should be. One of the greatest rivalries in the NFL, divisional battle, true hate. 13th time they've opened up against each other, and it's going to be the Sunday Night Football game this year. Heck yeah, let's go. It is the Louie Bellina Show. I know, because I'm here and the show's named after me. Inside the Charles Schwab studio, Tuesday on The Zone.
The Money Machine is open now. Two ways to enter each week.
Oh, come on. Don't keep us in suspense.
Zone1150.com and the Zone newsletter.
Thank you.
The Louie Bellina Show, inside the Charles Schwab studio. Louie Bellina Show, presented by CC Electric, Tuesday edition. We were talking about NFL schedules, and we went, look at the toughest and the hardest and the easiest and things of that nature. And we've had leaks this week. The first one right off the bat was Sunday Night Football, Week 1. Cowboys, Giants, greatest rivalry in NFL. I go with the Packers-Bears because I'm a Packers fan. Cowboys, Giants, I think easily is probably the number 1 most viewed, but Giants-Packers. Giants-Packers? Texans, Cowboys. I really wish the Texans, Cowboys, if there's a way to exempt them to play every year, it could grow pretty huge. Sure, why not? Pretty huge. But yes, Cowboys, Giants, Sunday night feels right. They have played 13 times. This will be the 13th, rather, I guess it is. It'll be the 13th time they played in the opening week, and they should. NFL doesn't have to do it. They're selling games off to Rio, Germany, Guatemala, Chinese Taipei, I don't know, Snook. You have games everywhere now, and that's fine. I don't rail against it. Just the times are pretty rough for me. But this Sunday Night Football, and if it wasn't Packers, Bears, Cowboys, Giants, what a way to end the week. The Monday night game will be Chiefs, Broncos. They're really pulling out all the stops. And this was something I did not know, but the last time someone won the AFC West that wasn't the Chiefs or Broncos was 2009, and that was the San Diego Chargers. So early season implications. When you get to week 2, the Thursday night football game, the Bills will be opening their brand new stadium. So it's the Lions and the Bills. Prime Video. Do I have to go into that whole rant thing about needing to own 5 different streaming services? Because I can be that old dude on his porch who remembers where you just woke up on Sunday, watched 3 games at noon, 3 and the 7 o'clock at night, and you didn't have to have any other services, and then Monday Night Football, and life was good, and it's just not like that anymore. How many things do you have to own? Because now during the holidays, they're all going to streaming services, and okay, I'm getting off the porch. Other things we know, that week 3 is the Ravens-Cowboys game, Rio de Janeiro. Other things we know is week 4, the Commanders in London. Week 5, Jaguars in London. Week 6 is Texans, Jaguars in London. I mean, we're going down the road now, but week 10, the Lions in Munich, Germany. Week 12, remember something. We always knew the holiday games, right? But you remember, I don't know if you know this, but now Thanksgiving, it's the triple header, but we now have the Thanksgiving Eve game and the Black Friday game. And on Christmas, we now have a Christmas Eve game on Amazon and the Christmas Day triple header. So the holidays are NFL time. And you'll hear all those games on the Zone thanks to Westwood One.